Welcome to the Next Big Future YouTube channel. Brian Wong is the founder and almost exclusive content provider for the Next Big Future blog, which is the #1 science blog in the known universe, enjoying an average of over 1 million views per month. My name is Randy Kirk. Brian's been a frequent guest on my channel discussing issues generally having to do with Elon Musk's various companies. What we found was that Brian, an actual scientist, and Randy, a wannabe, made a great team. Brian tries to explain what is going on in some area of science in terms that I can almost understand. And then I do my best to respond to him as a kind of student to see if I get it right. This then allows those of you watching to hopefully get an understanding on issues that are not within your own area of specialization. So today is the launch of this new idea. And if you like the idea, please hit like. If you think you'd like more of this in the future, hit subscribe and then hit notify, which will remind you of our next episode, which is going to be about once a week. At least that's the plan. So, Brian, what do you think? Here we go.
Yep, sounds good, Randy. Go over big stuff for 2024 and beyond, but with a focus on the near term with the big impact. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So we're going to be looking at things that are, what is the top news science stories right now? Not necessarily they're not newsworthy, but they might also be things that are ongoing that you think will have an impact in the next year. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, perfect. Well, why don't we share the screen and let's take a look at the first subject.
Okay, let me get to. Okay, so the first one here is, I have a few slides about this to kind of explain it. There's a large mouse trial related to anti-aging. So for those who are unaware, there's been a lot of work and funding related to extending human lives. But it's not for people trying to slow down aging per se. It's about repairing aging damage, because the biology of aging is super complicated. We all kind of age biologically, and then we get damage, and the damage becomes disease.
Right.
So there's about 180 companies that have been funded working on specifically on anti-aging. More if you count ones that are, they're working on cancer and various other things, like a lot more, but specifically related to human aging. And this is the first trial that says, let's look at the multiple top most promising treatments, combine them, and see if we can get a bigger effect. The best effect in general has been about 30%, maybe 40% increase in increasing the lifespan of mice.
30 to 40%.
That's already been done. That's been done inside. Yeah.
So if we change that to human years, if we could increase the human average lifespan, which right now is around 85, I think. Mm-hmm. So a 30% increase would be like 25, 26 years. We'd be talking about the average person living to 110.
Yeah, no, that's not how it works, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because we already live on average 80 years, while a mouse lives, 3 years. Right. So if you extend the mouse age by a year, right, then we might get 2 to 5 year effect in people.
Oh, okay.
Because we are already older, and then there's more complications in that when you get to 100, even if you're in a super healthy group, Japanese people living to 85 on Okinawa or something like that, what happens is you hit this kind of wall at about 100, where people start dying at about 30% a year. So then that means at that rate, if you started with 1,000, you end up with 1 at 110. Right. So it's this kind of wall they hit. Anyway, but the main point about this is why this is important and matters is that, one, if they can show that combining the effects, can get to a better result, and then they can try, 4 different things this time, and another study will start up soon. They'll do another 4, and then you can start, taking all the best science and aggregating it into something that could actually do some good for people, right? And the other thing would be that the general theory that the person who I've spoken with about this, Aubrey de Grey, who's leading this trial, has an operating group. He's been on CBS, 60 Minutes, all that kind of stuff for 20 years, advocating the anti-aging thing, is that he believes that if we can double the remaining age of mice, so that 30% number, we get to 100%.
Right.
Then, because we've been stuck at 30%, 40% for a few decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we get this bigger breakthrough, then the money that's already been going in at about $4 to $10 billion will then suddenly say, well, we can actually start making a big impact. We should do some stuff. And then the money pivot happens, and then $100 billion, a lot of money starts flowing in, because a lot of wealthy people, Saudi Arabia, Jeff Bezos, others really want it to happen, because they're not getting younger. And, even if they have $100 billion, if they age out and die, they still age out and die. So the wealthy people will say, okay, now I have something to target on, something that can, make this huge difference. So
except for Elon Musk. Elon Musk says he thinks that, 85 is probably a good number.
Right. And of the main thing that I agree with on Elon, that's one I disagree with. So, yeah. So this trial could potentially, in this next year, reach the point where these mice that should have died a year, after 1 year of life, because they start midway through, so they would expect them to die in a year. If a lot of them last to 2 years, then it's kind of like, ring the bell, significant change has happened. These scientists will start saying, okay, now I can be more bold because, things don't happen. So there will be a shift in perception on the science side, and then likely a significant, thing on the general public side of like,
sure,
this could start making a difference. So I'll go to the next three slides to kind of go. So they have 1,000 mice, and starting at 1,000 mice, and then they split them up into like 100 each for each of these groups. So controls do nothing. Rapamycin is a very common thing. Senolytics is getting rid of the zombie cells. So as you age, some cells, they don't die, but they start behaving badly, right? So that's what they call kind of zombie cells. The reason your body doesn't get rid of them when you're older is that when you're young, I'm making new cells all the time.
Right.
When you're old, I stop making so many cells. So it's like, okay, that cell's no good, but I can't get rid of them because I'm making that many new cells. So then the old cells, arthritis, other things start happening. And then there's the telomerase thing, which is the end of the shoelace thing of DNA. They have to extend that. That's kind of a clock thing. So they think that has some effect. And then human stem cells, which is the root cell from which all the other cells kind of come around. If you supply more good cells, so it's like get rid of old bad cells, supply new good cells, and then combine all these treatments together into that. So that's what they've been doing. I've been doing this for a year. So they did the first round, did the intervention. They said 1 year additional life. If you get an additional year, that's the goal that they would have. So this has already been going on for about 9 months or something like that. So this is for the male mice. So they have this dark blue line, third from the bottom. That's the no treatment control thing.
Okay.
And then at the top, there's a brown one that's at around 830. This is the top one, where basically only 88% of those have died. That's the give them all 4 treatments.
Okay.
Right? So basically, we're seeing that after almost 200 days, we've lost 1/3 of the untreated mice, and then only 12% of the if we give them all the treatments. And then the range of other stuff for the other treatments that we got. This is for the male mice, and then there's some ones where like you gave them something, and it kind of had worse effect than the give them nothing.
Right.
So the female ones, the give them nothing one, the dark blue line, is the worst one. So after 200 some days, only 2/3 of those untreated ones are gone, and after like 150 days, 20% of the give them everything have been treated. These particular breeds of mice, the females live shorter than the males.
Generally.
So generally, right. So that's why 12% versus the whole thing. But the promising thing is that it looks like that the give them all treatments are tracking towards doubling the remaining life of the mice. Where if you didn't treat them, they're pretty much all gone within a year. But if you do treat them, then a significant number lasts till 2 years. That's roughly what the numbers are saying, but have to play it out for a year to see.
I was going to say
they can start.
Yeah. So, Brian, the thing I'm not understanding, but I think you just said it, is that basically this trial is only been going on for something close to a year. So we don't even know what the effect is going to be in the second year. It's not a matter of running a new trial. It's a matter of completing this trial.
Completing this trial. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But they will also do stuff like kill a few of the mice and do some autopsy, look how healthy they are. Because it's not just about, not dying. Right. It's about, being healthier and stuff like that. Sure. So they'll be also tracking those kinds of things. So it's giving us, better information about the range of treatments and then what will be most promising combination therapy to work with.
So your channel, the Next Big Future channel and our channel will be continuing to monitor this through the year as we see, because this is a fairly major, it seems like it could be a real breakthrough.
That's right. It could really focus a lot of it into what should we be doing for people, test if it works, this combination, as opposed to I do the 100th test on another single thing. It has something in the 20-30% range versus let's combine 5-10 good things that can, add 10 years versus something that might add 1.
Well, and so Brian, at my advanced age, can I get all 4 of these treatments now?
So there's a group led by a guy called Bill Falloon. He's a multimillionaire who runs the lifeextension.com, I think it is. I get the exact name of his site. So he sells supplements through his company, makes about $30 million a year, roughly. But then he has another group that of like a few hundred, maybe 1,000 hardcore people who are older who say, I can't wait for this to sort itself out, right? So then they follow a protocol of what is the stuff that I should be trying, right? So they would look at the research papers and say, okay, getting rid of zombie cells. I now believe enough evidence that is a good thing. It's in general never a bad thing to do that, right? So then I'm willing to add that into my list, my recipe of stuff. So then they look at what is the already approved drug or what is the supplement that has that effect, right? So they ideally would find something that has no patents or whatever on it, not expensive.
Right.
So they have something, I think it's about a couple thousand, $3,000 a year based on the program. So they already are working on, like there's some Dinesetab and some other things that can do the senolytic, get rid of zombie cell effect they have here. It may not be the exact same thing because these may have chosen, let's get the one that we think is the best type of this, irregardless of whatever cost. While they are saying, I want to get 80-90% good, ideally, or more, for an inexpensive treatment. So basically they're working on about 4 or 5 different things that they're working on of doing. So they're self-experimenting to a certain extent, right? But they're working in a group to combine their knowledge to track the science. Because as you say, if you're 70, 80, then like the mortality life insurance table. We know life insurance gets more and more expensive as you get older. The reason being your actual risk per year increases, right? So my theory and their theory is, if my risk is going up, I need to take a few more chances to try and change the result. Right? Yeah. Like if I'm losing the football game, I got to go to hurry up offense.
Right.
I gotta try the Statue of Liberty play or whatever thing. even though normally I wouldn't,
Yes.
because I wouldn't want to take the risk. But if I'm, if I got like 2-minute warning left and I got to get 2 touchdowns, I gotta take that shot. So
Yeah.
same
Makes sense.
principle.
Great.
Okay. Okay, now on to some other biotech stuff. So gene editing and other biotech is still proceeding. There are many, multi-billion-dollar gene editing companies. CRISPR Therapeutics and Vertex this year got approved sickle cell disease treatment and another one for another rare blood disease. In general, they are 1 gene's off. If I fix the 1 gene, then get a market, make billions of dollars, and that kind of thing.
Sure.
So that was approved, and they are, rolling out the market. Interestingly enough, the stock didn't move that much. That's a whole priced in thing or something or whatever, but it has high potential in terms of lives. So that will be getting more deployed to the people who have sickle cell disease. And then they're the laundry list of 1-cell diseases, these a few thousand of these things. So it's a question of which ones are economic and stuff like that. So this is something to watch to see the advance of gene therapy.
And the thing about the gene therapy, tell me again if I got this right, is that gene therapy is a cure as opposed to a palliative. This is not just going to make you live a little longer or make you feel better or have less pain or whatever. It's actually going to eliminate the disease from your body. Is that correct?
In the ideal case.
In the ideal case. Okay.
But there's oftentimes where maybe you're wrong. Maybe it's 4 genes that do something, right? One does most of it, and then I didn't find the other 3, right? That were like 5% or whatever, right? So, and then there's also, people are all different and stuff like that. So it may not be a complete cure. It may, and also your first go at it may only get, again, part of the problem if you didn't, but if you did figure it all out, if this gene does do the whole thing on or off kind of thing, if that is the profile, then yes, you can get complete cures.
Neat. Very cool.
Yeah. So now there's several others where they're working on cancer vaccines. So this is, of course, more general population thing. 40% of people, all people in general, die of cancer, right? So it's not that you necessarily be smoking something like that. It's just that, as I talked to an expert on the molecular diseases and cancer, the human body is cancering all the time.
Sure.
You got trillions of cells, and then some of them go bad and become cancer, but then your body picks them off and it doesn't matter. It's when it escapes your body's defenses that you get the full-blown and becomes a disease. But you're always producing these cells. It's just that normally it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think there's also the point, as somebody pointed out to me years ago, that if you live long enough, you will become a diabetic. For some people, that might mean 120 years. For other people, it might mean 60 or 40. So with the cancers, it's just a matter of which one's going to get you if you live long enough. Yeah.
Which go also with the thing about the anti-aging thing was that, you have all these things going wrong, that if you fix the top 5 things, there are number 6 to 100 or 1,000 that are still waiting there to get you, which could become more serious. You just wouldn't have lived long enough to have that be the problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah. So they got phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials for several different promising cancer treatments, different kinds of cancer, one for pancreatic cancer. There's all kinds of cancers to target. Another one, Moderna, Merck are working at a phase 3 for melanoma, so some skin cancer type things. So a lot of activity there, and then a lot to track in terms of the genetic approaches. Biotech is a large industry, $400 billion, $1 trillion, whatever.
Right.
A lot of activity happening there. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me go on to the next one. So skipping on to some other non-medical stuff. Anduril Industries is an interesting drone company. Silicon Valley based. So the guy who started it, his I think last name is Lucky. So he helped create the those VR goggles,
Okay.
the ones that Facebook slash Meta bought. So he made $2 billion off that. I'm not sure if it was fully him or he got a lot of that money. So he
Right.
became a billionaire off that. And then he was at a Peter Thiel conference, billionaire Peter Thiel's conference. Peter Thiel was one of the guys that was with Elon at PayPal and stuff like that,
Right.
and does Palantir and all that kind of stuff. Because he was talking with some other guy, and he said, "Hey, there's not enough AI and drones and blah blah for the military. The military spends $10 billion, $100 million. Silicon Valley should be getting some of that money and doing that thing." So then they formed this company, which is now worth about $8.8 billion.
Wow.
And they're doing all kinds of drones with a lot of software, a lot of AI. So the one on the right is one that's about tall as a person. It's blunt. So the interesting that kind of rockets up and they can intercept a rocket drone. It's knocked apart. And then this thing is sturdy enough that it may even just come back. So it's like it's a drone flying hammer thing that kind of like hits something and then breaks it apart and come back. They got a lot more AI and stuff. And the other one is a mock-up of one of those wingman drones that the military is hot to get. So they're doing a lot of stuff on that. They also have sensor things that they're doing. So kind of a possible new age for AI. The other thing is that drones in general for military have become a really big deal in the Ukraine-Russia war.
Right.
It's a central part of that activity. As they will attack the drone jammer first. So some guy with or some truck with some drone jamming, radiation gear or something like that, and then they will target that first to take. So it's a drone anti-drone defense thing, and then the regular battle happens. It's kind of like the air superiority thing. Drone superiority is something that's happening.
Yeah. So I came to the conclusion, I don't know, 5 years ago, that the future of warfare is all drones. I don't even think it'll be robots on the ground. It will be 100% drone warfare. And it turns out, I know I keep mentioning him, but that is what I study all the time. Elon Musk agrees with me. He thinks the future of warfare is also drones. I just don't see how you can't make millions of these things and make them in all different configurations with all different duties and responsibilities, and put all kinds of different ways of defeating anti-drone approaches. One way or the other, you could have such a massive ability, a massive swarm. What else would you need? Yeah.
It will be important. I actually think that one of the most powerful weapons is the Starship, SpaceX Starship.
Oh, yeah.
Because it can go Mach 20. So regular ICBMs can also go up to Mach 20. I think this missile with a nuclear tip, they've been around for 60 years, something like that. But the difference with the Starship is, one, it can carry 200 plus tons of payload. A B-52 can carry like 50 tons. So it's like 4 B-52s, 5 B-52s that they improve the engines. And then it can start and stop the engines, right? And so flying at that speed, like they never shot down the Mach 3.5 SR-71 Blackbird.
Okay.
That spy plane, right? Never shot it down, right? It's because it could fly, twice as high as the regular plane. And then if you shot a missile at it, your missile wasn't that much faster than the plane. And then it could just, go away and be like, outrange your missile.
Yeah.
The Starship would be going like 6-7 times faster than the Blackbird.
Wow.
It could fly like even twice as high, even higher, right?
Yeah.
And so then if you shoot a missile up at it, it's going to rise like 50, 60 miles. Meanwhile, this thing has moved 200 miles away. Right. So you can hit it. The other thing would be, because it can carry 250 tons of stuff, it can carry just ball bearings, 200 tons of ball bearings, right? So if I have a ball bearing going at Mach 20, like 10 times faster than a speeding bullet, right? Then that thing hits like a high-powered, high explosive grenade, right?
Yeah.
So 1 ton of them would be 100 tons would be like 1 million, quite heavy, high explosive things, right? So I can release like a few thousand at a time, spit out these ball bearings. Any missile get hit by like 1,000 grenades, right? So you can shoot it down. And then over the the ground. If there were your swarm of drones, I pound them with 1,000,000 ball bearings, everything flying is wiped out, right? So, the speed and physics, kinetic energy, is something that people don't get. Like when they look at Star Trek and blah blah blah, it's like, oh, I'm using my laser, my phasers, and I'm shooting the other guy. But you have a ship that can go like faster than the speed of light. You just run through it. I dump out my chair out the side of the thing, is it hits like a nuclear bomb, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, just something that yes, to the person, many drones are very dangerous, but if you have nation state warfare, it's just a different thing.
Different thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I go over a bit of energy, so I'm going to go over some random things. Something that I track a lot is that for energy, like solar and batteries, of course, hugely important. We know for Tesla, there is some small modular nuclear reactors, which is new technology, which is coming. A lot of U.S. companies are working on it. Westinghouse, they're going to put some into Canada. Canada, U.S. kind of working together on these kind of things. One thing I want to kind of point out, though, is that the reason that they're really going for these small modular nuclear reactors is because the big nuclear reactors, the regular ones that we made in the 1970s and that France made in the 1980s, have become too expensive in the West. They added a bunch of regulations that made things more expensive, and that also all large construction projects in the U.S., any bridge, any high rise, is like, that costs how many $1 billion? Why did it cost that much? Like Empire State Building cost that much. They put it up in a year. It's because the U.S. and Europe have had these problems making large projects, and that's why, let's just make it smaller. It still costs $1 billion. Like the one on the right is a Chinese nuclear fission reactor, just a one regular one, just like they bought the technology from Westinghouse, to make it. So it's the same ones that they were making before, slightly upgraded, right? But it cost them like $2 billion, $4 billion to make a 1 gigawatt reactor, right? Mm-hmm. The tiny one on the left that was going to be 70 megawatts, so 1/15 the size, they were saying, oh, let's make 3 or 4 of those, and that was going to be like multi-billions of dollars, right? They canceled it because it was going to be $3 billion, $4 billion. So it was going to be just as expensive because they couldn't make it. So China is making that. On the science technology front, they took a pebble bed reactor where I take uranium fuel and encase it in ceramic, so that instead of being a fuel rod, which would be something that they put in a pool of heavy water or other things like that, and they try and control the reaction. If I have it in a ceramic ball, then it gets up to a certain temperature. If it goes above a temperature, it's hit. All these balls, like marbles, are held in a big bowl. On the bottom is another hunk of metal, like a lead, that melts at, say, 1,000 degrees. So I want to run at 900 degrees. It goes to 1,000. The plug on the bottom melts. Oh. All the marbles fall at the bottom, and then it's spread out onto a pad. So then it cools naturally, right? Mm-hmm. So there's no like, oh, the computer must work to stop a reaction thing. It's all physics, right? Nice. So it was really developed by the Germans, but they didn't want to build it. And then China took technology for that. They have a commercial version of that reactor. There are some US startups, X Power and stuff like that are working on pebble bed reactors. So they are one that would be walk away safe, where because I know physics and temperature will cause this thing to stop by itself, right? When it won't boil over, it will kind of boil out, right? So it would be safer. One, nuclear is safer than pretty much all the other energy sources. It got bad rap because, everyone remembers the name of every nuclear accident over 60 years, right? But, there all the accidents happening with coal, oil and gas every freaking day, or that kind of pollution killing, World War I levels of people every year. It's like the people's perception of statistics and stuff is just wrong. It's like, I can't name all the coal accident things that happened this year, but I can remember the four.
Yes.
So the fact that there's fewer of them
Yes.
is a problem. Anyway, so I just wanted to go over that in terms of like the science energy. This is something that's continuing to happen. The pebble bed reactors are cool because they operate at a higher temperature, the same temperature as the coal plants.
Oh.
So China had 3,000 coal plants. If they were to make this next generation pebble bed one, a slightly bigger one than they just made, which would be it'd be the exact size that I could just take out a coal plant and then pop in the nuclear one, and then all the power lines, everything else, any chemical heat, it'd all be there. So then they could totally replace all the coal with nuclear.
Interesting. Now, I think didn't the United States just actually have a new reactor installed and are up and running last week or something for the first time in decades or something?
Yeah. So I think the second plant, I think in Georgia. So they had one in 2016, and now they got another one up. Okay. So yes, on pace for one a decade or two a decade or something.
I see.
But they have 100 still operating, so they need to not shut those down.
Yeah.
So they should progress with that, but China, India, the Asian countries are pressing faster. It's mainly China.
Yeah.
And then China's also working on, and this is all like, again, technology is pioneered in general in the West that China's choosing to move on with. There's fast breeder reactors. So people concerned about nuclear waste is that nuclear waste is like 96% uranium-238 by weight.
Right.
So you start off with uranium, but then there's the 235, and then there's 238. So they talk about enrichment. Enrichment means I'm taking the percentage of 235 and increasing it for a nuclear plant or increasing it for a weapon, right? And the reason that 238 doesn't split is because I need the neutron that hits it to go 100 times faster, right? So that's fast reactor. A fast reactor has faster neutrons. So then I can split the 238, right? 238 becomes 239, which is plutonium, and then it splits, and then you have the reaction. So basically, you can use up all the fuel.
I see.
So nuclear waste is unburned fuel because the reactor was not designed to use that up.
Gotcha.
Right? So China's working on fast reactors, Russia's working on fast reactors. China's multi-decade plan, because they do that, is to make a lot of the pebble bed reactors, make a lot of the other bed reactors, but then make a lot of fast reactors starting around 2040, and then continuing up until 2100, where they could then close the fuel cycle. They replace all the coal, and then we use up all the nuclear waste.
Right.
So by closing the fuel cycle, they would have 20 times more uranium, because they could use the 238 as well as the 235, and they could go mostly nuclear.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Wow. And the other thing is that they have a design for a nuclear container ship. So they just released that out. Again, probably using either molten salt, again, a different kind of nuclear reactor, or pebble bed. The thing about that is they only have about like 6 or 8 nuclear submarines.
Yeah.
And they haven't built a nuclear aircraft carrier yet. The US has about like 80 to 100. And so there have been commercial ships that have done this. This would be something that would let them have a nuclear navy for commercial and for regular purposes. If they have nuclear commercial ships, they could go faster. They wouldn't have to stop and refuel, load up with oil and stuff like that. And the ships use the dirtiest, cheapest fuel. It's called bunker fuel. So if I get rid of the nuclear container ships and cargo ships, it'd be like taking out the number 6 polluting country in the world. So it's not quite.
Let me just make sure I was right on that. By taking out the oil-based container ships. Okay.
Yeah, converting them to nuclear.
Wow.
Then that would clean up the world air pollution a lot. It's like almost as good as cleaning up all the cars and trucks.
Wow. Holy mackerel.
Yeah. So nuclear is important still. Some people think, it's have concern about the PR, but it's an important way to make the environment and the economy better.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So there's quantum computers. So there's regular computers like we have right now for our laptops and for our phones, and then there's quantum computers. So there's about 100 companies working on either software or hardware for quantum computers. I was at a conference just a few weeks ago in the Bay Area where a lot of them met to discuss quantum computers for business. There have been about again $4 to $10 billion spent on funding the quantum computer companies. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
They have not yet gotten quantum computers where you can actually do anything better with them than regular computers. So as much as people think, oh, it's so cool, the future, and Google announced some stuff where they quantum supremacy, solve a problem better. It's when they do that, they solve a problem better. It's one, a niche problem that doesn't have a lot of application, and then two, the super smart people who use the regular computers then come around and say, oh, you solved it that way? I didn't really care about that problem. Let me really work on that problem now. And then they say, okay, instead of taking 1,000 years to write a computer, we did it in 5 weeks, right? So basically it's like the response has been, okay, we've done something you can't do. And then the other guys come back and say, oh yeah, we still can do it. So it's a lot of smart people using computers that have back and forth. But what supposedly can get beyond all that is error correction on the quantum computers. The quantum computers have so much error that you rapidly get to the point where you can't use them for anything. Regular computers, every 9th bit, I have a little check bit, and then that handles all the errors on the hardware side of things. So it's far easier on the regular computer side, versus on this side, they're saying, I may need 1,000 qubits to get one good error corrected qubit.
I see.
So it's like I must repeat the number 222 1,000 times for you to be sure to hear me say 2 once. You know, if this was like a really bad, Zoom recording, right? I have to say it over and over and over again to make sure you hear it once. So error correction is a huge problem, very difficult. And at that conference, they announced 48 error corrected qubits out of like 200 some regular qubits. It was kind of a weak error correction thing, so there's some caveats to this thing. But the MIT professor, one of the co-founders, who worked with Harvard professors, say that by 2025 they could have 10,000 to 100,000 physical qubits, which could then be 100 fantastic 1 in a million, 1 in 100 million error rate versus 1 in 1,000 now qubits, which would then let you do all these problems. Because like you need to be able to have no errors in order to really do a really good computation.
We usually prefer it that way, right?
That's right.
Especially on these big questions that you're talking about that would be dealt with by quantum computers. So they're saying that in 2025, which is only now a year away, we're recording this on the last day of 2023. So in a year or so, they're expecting to have a substantial number of qubits that are ready to actually be put into use.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
All right.
So what does this all mean for us? One, things could go fast. It might happen at the end of 2024. You know, if things went really well, it would happen in the lab. But whether it happens December, it happens in February 2025, things could happen fairly quickly on this front, right? And they'd be better than what they just did, a few months ago, right? Because the way the science works, you would do a lab test, you have to write it up, publish it. It's not instantaneous. So the actual work probably happened a few months ago. Normally it happens a couple of years ago, and then you write up the report and do stuff, and it takes time. But a big announcement like this, the science journals will fast track you to get this in. But basically this could be a huge deal. So in terms of commercial applications, in terms of like better logistics, like how do I pack a truck with some stuff, which would be worth a few $1 in ships. If I have 40 or 50 good qubits, but I could do 6,000 operations with it without error, right? Then that would be good enough. So it's not just the number of qubits, it's how many steps can I do with it.
Yeah.
So there are these things of significant value, commercial value, that could do it. It may not be better than if I had a dedicated supercomputer to do it, but it could be where using the quantum computer could become easier than, again, it's a commercial benefit. Yes, $10 billion of supercomputer could do it, but then I could have a $100 million quantum computer, and then cost benefit wise, I could then have a business, right? The other thing would be that if they get up to 1,500 error-corrected qubits or 6,000, at 1,500, if I have your public Bitcoin key, right? You have two keys, public and private. If I have your public one, it could be published somewhere, whatever it happened. With 1,500 qubits, I could, and it could do enough operations, I could then find your private key.
I see.
So then crypto would then be threatened. They would have to fork and then reapply some stuff, but it could then threaten that. The other thing is that it could threaten at 6,000 qubits, 4,000, 6,000, roughly that number. All of the banking encryption, the common banking encryption would be messed up, would be threatened. Now, if your quantum computer may not be able to crank through 1 trillion transactions and crack every one, right? But once I start cracking some, that's enough to, like Bitcoin prices could crash, because, okay, yes, you haven't broke mine, but you broke some, and now I don't trust it anymore, right? Yeah. Or for banking side, you haven't broken them all, but now it's vulnerable. Yeah. I can't trust it anymore. Yeah. So they're going to start next year, 2024. The US will say, here's our 10-year plan for converting from old encryption to new encryption. We're going to spend $100 million, and then we'll start fading out of it. But
wow.
Yeah. Yes. But they could be a bit too late on that, in that if I record an encrypted message now, for spies, right? Yeah. Yeah. And that secret still matters in 6-8 years. Yeah. Right. Then I have recorded the encoded secret, and then I wait until I can decode it, and now your secret is exposed 6 years later. Right. So that's something that could matter. Medical secrets and stuff like that. So it's something that, again, will impact our lives. The changing over to new encryption is kind of like that Y2K problem, where we had to spend, people old enough in 1999, 1988, we spent tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars reprogramming everything to switch off of that problem where we'd handle dates wrong. Similarly for this, we're going to, even if this kind of doesn't happen, we're going to be on the march, assuming it will happen.
I see. Yeah.
Changing all the government, all the military, all the banks, everything. So this is something happening. But then the actual quantum computers could do stuff that could solve the really valuable problems that we can't solve with regular computers over the next while. And that could start happening
in 2025.
2025. Yeah. It could take a bit later, but we start getting the possibility. While before they announced this stuff, people would have said, at least 10 years later, right? Now it's like, it may not happen in 2025, but it's now not impossible that they could achieve these results. And then again, there's 100 other companies and more working toward this thing. So yeah, the progress could go pretty quick.
Wow. Okay.
Memristors. So this was a different kind of transistor circuit that, for people who remember, HP made a big presentation about memristors where they said, okay, this new kind of chip, way lower power, it's going to be like a brain, all that kind of stuff. Intel had something called Optane memory, which could record and hold memory longer. That group failed. So it got outcompeted by regular stuff. So the benefit versus cost, this is for real. It had certain benefits, but computer technology is always improving. It couldn't beat that out. But the promise of this thing is that you can make circuits that are like a neuron, and you can scale them up to trillions if the thing worked out. They have now made some advances integrating the memristor chip. Some Chinese group has done that. And it could be 1/800th to 1/5000th the energy for a neural net kind of application. They only have about 30,000 of these, versus 100 billion transistors or whatever on your iPhone. So But there are niche applications where it could be, very important. So something that's been a technical possibility for a while isn't still making progress. Things could happen, but again, does it get outcompeted again by not needing it?
I see. Yeah.
But the neural network is big important because that's what all the open AI other things are based upon, right? So if we need 1,000 trillion transistors and neural net like things for super AI, then super AI with memristors that are using 1/10,000th the energy, that could be an important thing. So something to keep an eye on. Yeah.
Well, be a very important thing, right? Because the big issue that we're facing is, as I understand it, is that we just don't have enough energy capacity now or planned to handle the amount of data storage, data centers that we're going to need in order to do AI.
Right. So this is something to keep an eye on related to that. Sodium-ion batteries. So we all follow Tesla and lithium-ion batteries, iron phosphate batteries, sodium-ion batteries. So China's in the lead on that. Sodium-ion batteries would be usable in general with roughly the same equipment that we make the lithium-ion, iron phosphate batteries with. So the top 3 companies in China on that, and then also the Northvolt over in Europe, working on this. So TransImage is the leader with 4.5 gigawatt hours at the close of this year, which is about 1/3 of China's total. So China's probably at 15 gigawatt hours total. Again, it's difficult to get actual production. Is it capacity? Is it actual production?
Yeah.
We don't fortunately have a Joe Tegmar parked outside the TransImage factory watching what's coming out of it. So we don't know. Natrium is another one. I think, not sure if that's a Chinese company or variation on that. They have a fair amount at 2.5 gigawatt hours. And then CATL just started up their the third largest sodium ion factory. CATL was talking about doing 20 gigawatt hours. And for people who want to scale these things, the Nevada Panasonic Tesla factory have been producing about 30 to 40 gigawatt hours per year for a long time. And then the overall lithium ion thing is about 1 terawatt hour now. So this is still a small potato, but it matters because it has a potential to scale to terawatt hours or even 100 terawatt hours of capacity. Because I think in Wisconsin, there's like 45 billion tons or whatever of soda ash, which is mostly the stuff that could go the cheapest into sodium. Sodium you can just get, of course, from salt from the sea or whatever that. But in terms of actually converting a lot of material, you want something that's more ready to go, and that's soda ash. And then it's one of the things where if you solve sodium ion batteries at scale, it can go down to $10 per kilowatt hour, maybe even $5 per kilowatt hour. The cost of materials on it is like table salt stuff.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
So like all that people planning for electric world, do I have enough this? Do I have enough that? This would answer do I have enough battery materials for a civilization 1,000 times energy intensive than we have now? And the answer would be yes with sodium ion batteries.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So something to keep an eye on as it scales. Could make a big difference by 2030 if they talk about getting to 6 terawatt hours of batteries per year, and then running out of lithium, or enough lithium to keep that going. Sodium ion batteries aren't quite as energy dense, so they'd be perfect for megapacks and also for some inferior lower range cars.
Right.
But you can also mix in CATL talk about mixing in like 1 sodium, 1 lithium iron phosphate, so you can kind of like tune the range based on how much you need to get lower cost. So that's something that is important science technology thing to work on. There was more news about the room temperature superconductor. Most people say, "Oh, it's all scams." I get annoying comments where they say, "Why are you even talking about this thing? It's been disproven," and stuff like that. It's like I'm reading the research papers and then I'm telling you what's happening. The fact that some scientists say that the bulk stuff doesn't work is like other people still working on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And not like me making it up. It's like real researchers at universities are working on this stuff. Anyway,
Right.
so the original South Korean guys, they will have a presentation at a major conference, the American Physical Society, March 4th,
Oh,
2024,
wow.
8 a.m., 8:12 to 8:24. So it's only gonna be like 12 minutes long.
Okay.
It's the scheduled thing. But they're gonna show a couple of videos. They're gonna, then they're gonna release whatever their latest thing is. So, and then of course there was some Chinese researchers, 6 universities and research labs in China, who say that they detected evidence of LK99 superconductor. So they made the powder, and then they said, okay, all other superconductors, niobium, YCBO, blah blah blah. You list like 6 and 7 totally different kinds of categories of superconductors, not just like different types, but whole categories. They all absorb microwaves because of the nature of what they are. It's like they're excluding the magnetic field and stuff like that. So they have this microwave effect, absorption effect, and so they detected that in the LK99 sample at about room temperature.
Okay.
So the reason that's important is that they're saying, okay, our sample also is not very much of the right superconducting material, but by using microwave absorption, I can detect in this pile of powder where is the needles in the haystack that actually are superconducting, and they can detect that using the microwave technique. And then they say in their paper on arXiv, not peer reviewed, but on arXiv, saying that they think that they can make better LK99 samples that will be superconducting, and they say that this is superconducting. So anyway, so that's
so is that a matter of making them so that they get a higher purity to where okay, they think they can increase the purity of these so that they're not looking for a needle in a haystack, they would be looking for a wallet in a haystack or something.
Right. And the other thing is that their testing microwave technique lets them know how close am I to better. Is this pile of powder better than this pile of powder? The process for this one better than this one. And now they can say, yes, this pile is better. It has 5% LK99 superconducting good stuff versus this one that has 2%, right? So they can steadily make progress, making it better because they actually have an experimental technique to, tell them what's going on. Yeah. Versus other ones are saying, okay, it didn't float, it didn't do this and do that. It's like your technique, is not good enough to get you improving, to give you the information you need to figure out what's going on.
Brian, at what point, so for the purposes of our new audience here in this new program that we're doing, I've done a number of videos with Brian on my channel about this superconducting. So I do know a little bit more about it as a non-scientist. Brian, when does this get to, how much of this material, or where do they get to the place where they can take some of this material and put it into an actual application to see whether they get this working in a real life situation, as opposed to whether it floats or whether it meets this microwave test, et cetera?
Okay. So the regular superconducting industry is about, I think, $6 billion, maybe $10 billion per year, right? That includes magnetic superconducting trains like they have in China, or particle accelerators using big magnets. Mm-hmm. The LK99 had not been shown to have high magnetic fields or have a lot of current, so really high power through it. So the magnetic trains, the magnets for particle accelerators, unless they figure something else out, is not what this material would be for. But the thin film supposedly is what it's good for. Thin film, which is like what you could use for a computer chip or something like that. If I just have one Josephson junction circuit, so I just make one transistor kind of thing, you can detect magnetic fields in a more sensitive way.
Okay.
And that is a device application that has a market, right? So just making a few at room temperature, not to cool it anymore, can be something that could be commercially relevant, right? It
And
won't
what would
be
it take? And what would it take in order to make that demonstration? Or do you think that's what the original Korean guys are trying to do, is a demonstration like that, as opposed to just using microwave testing or using the floating over a magnet idea?
according to the one paragraph description of the talk from March, they're going to show two videos. They're going to show better Meissner effect, the floating
Right.
on the battery, on the magnet. So you have a little chip and
Right.
it floats better. So they are showing that still. So not the thin film stuff.
Got it.
But when you ask what's the commercial application I think LK9 is more suited for, it is better computer chips.
Right.
That if I can make a lot of thin film,
Mhm.
one at a small level, I can make some devices, but it's kind of like a lab thing. Okay, some lab has a better thing which can be used. It's, maybe you could use it for a magnetic thing to detect the magnetic particles in a dollar bill or a $20 bill to see if it's, counterfeit or something like that. But it's like, it's not, whether you use that or whether you use it the regular way, is not a change our lives kind of thing.
Right.
But if they can make the thin film really good, really perfect, make wafers and wafers of these things, 100,000 wafers, then superconducting computer chips, which they're using, the military has funded a few $100 million for using the old superconductors. I can go from a 4 gigahertz regular silicon chip to 800 gigahertz. I can go 200 times faster, by going to a superconducting version of that. And LK99, because it's low power, you just have to be room temperature, could then do the same kind of thing. That could be the commercial application of making our computers 200 times faster. And there's some other like microwave electronic things at that point that could then be relevant. But for us, it'd be like computers could become 200 times faster if this was the real deal and scale.
Wow.
That would be the application. That would be trillions of dollars, change our lives, make our computers way better.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah. Okay. There is another kind of superconductor where they use a 10 terahertz laser, so 10 trillion little waves per second from this laser, would also enable room temperature superconducting. So this is not LK99. This is another material. It's a fullerene, so it's 3 potassiums and 60 carbon atoms. A little soccer ball of carbon. You hit that material with a 10 terahertz laser, and then it becomes a room temperature superconducting for a billionth of a second.
Okay.
If I keep hitting it a billion times,
yes,
right, with a few watts of power,
yeah.
So my light bulb less light than that, but just instead of getting a light for the room, I have a laser that's on this material. It can make it room temperature superconducting. The 10 terahertz lasers are not common yet. It's still something they need to make and make it continuous, so just more than one shot. So there's some hurdles still to go, but it is another path to more room temperature superconductors, right?
All right.
So there's some rotating detonating engines. NASA's working on that, Raytheon's working on that, China's working on these things. So these would be superior engines who are basically like they rotate and have explosion going on. So a regular engine, it's the general equation on that often relates to temperature, right? So if I have a higher temperature, then I can get more efficiency, more power out of my engine. But I can't keep ramping up the temperature, otherwise my engine metal melts.
Melts, right? Yeah.
Right. But this is something, a rotating detonator, where things explode. It has high temperature, but then it expels the stuff at a faster speed, but it's not damaging the engine as much. So 25% more efficient, more range, more power. They have it about, NASA did some tests at 5,800 pounds of thrust, which is, I think, about, 1/20th, 1/100th the power of a Raptor engine or something like that. So it's not as powerful, but it is more efficient. So in the military example, they talk about like applying a smaller version of these engines into the missiles to give the missiles more range, more speed, and all that kind of stuff.
I see.
But it also can make planes better, more efficient if you can scale it up. China says that they've created some larger scale rotating detonating engine. So they're claiming they're farther ahead. But military secrets haven't seen the stuff, so I don't know. But there's both sides are working hard on it, China and the United States.
Okay, I'm going to show my ignorance. It sounds to me like a Wankel.
A Wankel engine?
A Wankel engine, right?
Right.
No?
Well, yes, there are all kinds of engines that have been known for decades, but they never became the thing because you still have to make them cheap enough. The fact that something could potentially be better,
I see.
Maybe it goes into a Formula One car. It doesn't go into all kinds of vehicles, right? So it's will it become commercially successful? The military is hot for it. NASA wants it. Would it eventually be good enough that the next Raptor, or down the line would end up using it? Maybe. The other thing is that if they can be applied to air breathing engines and rockets, where instead of bringing my oxygen with me for a rocket, where I bring liquid oxygen, if I can suck it out of the air, then instead of bringing, I launched my Starship and I only bring 2% of the overall mass. Like the whole thing weighs 5,000 tons, and I bring 200 tons to space. If I can have the better engine, I got sucking the air out of the thing. Instead of bringing 1,000 tons of liquid oxygen with me, I can now have a payload. So it goes from 200 to 1,200 tons of payload. So this might be applicable to air breathing engines. So there's engine science to be done where you can get another 5 to 10x out of them. But initially they're looking at 25-30% and making them for certain weapons and other things. There's applications for better planes and engines.
Very cool.
Yeah. So in general, we've talked about Tesla bot, but just giving examples that the super AI, just wanted to mention that, like the Chat GPT, GPT-5 is coming out. They're already training it. The next version of Google Gemini is there. And then they could stick it into a humanoid robot form. Tesla with Tesla bot, Factory AI, Agility. There's several companies working on the humanoid bot. And I think a powerful application of the AI, the brains, with the form, the body, is something that will make many of the visions of science fiction, potentially more real. And I think that the utility of the humanoid robot form is something that will make AI far more applicable. Like even if AI can answer our medical questions, if it's actually walking around doing the work, is where it will go. It'll be like, if I can create the AI, it's kind of like, paraplegic. I'm talking to, it's very intelligent, smart. It's like I'm talking to the physics guy with who passed away recently. Who is he was one who was in the wheelchair all the time.
Oh yeah, okay.
Anyway,
Dawkins, not Dawkins or the
no,
not
Dawkins. Yeah, he had the voice simulator. Yeah.
Tony. No, she can't hear me.
Okay. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Anyway, so it's
so Mike, you can take all that out and start that over again.
Yeah. Anyway, so human robots. So just something that, and then also helping to advance science, is solving math problems, solving protein folding. So the AI is doing a lot of things to advance science as well. I just wanted to mention that to keep track on that. The nanotechnology is where we move atoms and put them in all the right spots. We're getting useful DNA nanorobots. So you see that there's 10 nanometers inside. You see the little crosses and things. So they made these little crosses that have sticky ends. So then they can kind of like connect together. You kind of like float them together over the surface of water, and then they can connect into larger forms, and then
Oh,
they can then fold themselves into structures like origami, right?
wow.
And so these robots are now being able to do useful things.
Now,
So
are these the again, showing my ignorance, which is my job on this channel?
yeah,
Are these the kind of thing that can be introduced into the bloodstream, for instance, in order to
yeah,
go do useful things? Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
yeah. So you can, if you have the right container, you can encapsulate medicine. So there's a bunch of medicine which we knew it works, but it had side effects,
Yeah.
right? So if I can encapsulate the medicine, get it to the right spot, and then release it,
Right.
then I can avoid the side effects on something that I know works, right? So that is one application. There's other things to do where I can control things at a tiny scale. So this is an ongoing area of research, and something that could have application for medicine, electronics, and many other areas.
Wow. Okay.
But if molecular technology has been underfunded, it should have been happening decades ago, but because people didn't believe it, this is where if you move the right atom or molecule to the right spot, you can create gears and stuff like that. Potential performance could go up by 100 times or something like that. So just something to we're modeling, but have not the actual experiments have lagged because of lack of funding.
I see.
And then there's other things where you take this origami seed and then you can fold it, put it together. There's different work being done on this. So it's not just one group, it's many groups working on this goal. And there's some funded companies, a company called Roswell Technologies, where they interface the molecules with regular CMOS silicon chips. So I have something and I connect it with the protein or the DNA or other molecules. And so they have molecular electronics where the molecule might sense some, detect some chemical or something like that, and have other functions that could then be directly interfaced to a chip, to a transistor, so it can then detect it and then send the message, hey, I detected whatever information, which can be things like the DNA is made of 4 different chemicals, right? And so they can use that ultimately to make gene sequencing for less than $100 for in an hour to
Right.
detect your whole genome. So this is something that and you can also use it for better memory, where you make it 1 million times more dense memory and that kind of stuff.
Well,
So
okay, that's the one I need.
yeah,
I need
that's right. Mhm. So that's basically it. So those are all things that I had to cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Brian, let me just remind everybody that if this was useful, if you found this to be interesting, if you think that future videos like this would be useful and help for you in the future, we'd sure appreciate it if you'd hit like. We definitely want you to subscribe, because that just makes the algorithm so happy. And then hit notify. That'll be good for you, because it'll help you to remember next time, which again, these are roughly going to come out once a week. Hopefully we can get into that kind of an exact once a week, but it's a new channel, so you never know if we'll get it right the first few weeks. And then, who knows what might happen in the future. And then, of course, Brian has nextbigfuture.com. So if you don't get enough science off of this hour, then all during the week, Brian is putting up new content on the largest science blog in the known universe. And so you can be following him all week long on bigfuture.com. Nextbigfuture.com. And then as well, you could follow my channel, my YouTube channel. It's just Randy Kirk. And then both of us have Patreon, and it's always super helpful to keep us excited about doing these efforts if we're seeing a little bit of help coming in on Patreon. And you can find Brian and myself on Patreon. So Brian, any last thoughts today?
I'm just looking forward to a really exciting 2024. 2023 was great, and I think it's a great thing will happen.
And of course, the last thing I want to say is, besides Happy New Year and great 2024, is We'd love to have your comments. Comments make a channel so much more rich and help us to know what we should talk about in future opportunities. So great, Brian. This a new effort, a new entrepreneurial opportunity here.
Thank you.
All right, bye for now.
Bye-bye.